My sister removed my name from her guest list, then she lost her $2.8 million house. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
It all started on a normal evening. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. My name is Alec Rose, and this isn't just a story. It's something that happened to me. Something that still keeps me up at night. You see, my sister and I weren't always close. But I never imagined she'd turn something so small into a life-changing moment. I thought I knew her. I thought we understood each other. But one phone call changed everything. She removed my name. Not from a group chat, not from some casual thing. From her guest list. The one for her big event. It wasn't just any event. This was the gathering that mattered. The kind of night where everyone you know is there, where every detail mattered. I wasn't just uninvited. I was erased. Like I had never existed. And it wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. I still remember the exact moment I realized it. I was scrolling through my phone, excited to see the event invite. And there it was. The list. My name nowhere to be found. My chest sank. Confusion turned into hurt. Then shock. Why would she do this? We grew up together, shared childhood secrets, laughter, tears, and suddenly, I wasn't even worth a mention. That night, I sat in my room staring at my phone. I replayed every interaction, trying to find the moment I'd lost her trust. But there was nothing. No argument. No warning. Nothing to explain why she would push me out. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Something deeper was wrong. I could feel it in my gut. I decided to call her. My voice shook when she answered. I tried to keep it calm, but she barely let me finish before cutting me off. "Alec, this isn't the time," she said, and then she hung up. That was it. No explanation, no apology, just silence. I knew then that this wasn't just about a guest list. It was something bigger, something she didn't want me to see. And I wanted answers. So, I started digging. The more I okayed, the more I realized there was something unusual going on. She had been acting differently for months. Secretive phone calls, avoiding family gatherings, deleting messages. But nothing prepared me for what I found next. A letter slipped into an old drawer in her room. One that was not meant for my eyes. The words were sharp, filled with bitterness and a strange kind of anger. And at the bottom, something that made my stomach drop. A mention of her house. Her house. The one she'd worked years to pay for. A house worth millions. And it was at risk. Somehow, my being removed from that guest list was tied to something much darker than a sibling disagreement. I had no idea how deep it went. But I could feel that the next steps I took would pull me into something I wasn't ready for. Something dangerous. That night, I sat on my bed staring out the window. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold. My mind raced with questions. Why me? Why now? What was she hiding? And most of all, what would happen next? I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The thought that my sister's decision could lead to something far worse kept me awake. And I realized this story was not over. It was only just beginning. I knew I had to follow the thread, even if it meant stepping into a place where I might lose more than just a name on a guest list. Little did I know that small act of exclusion would lead to a storm so powerful it would change everything I thought I knew about my sister and about myself. And so, my journey began. To find out why she removed me, and what happened after that would shock me in ways I could never have imagined. The truth was hidden, buried deep, and it was about to come to light. But would I be ready for it? It started the next morning. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen the night before. That letter. Her secret. My name gone from the guest list. It all felt connected somehow. But how? I needed answers. I told myself I wouldn't confront her yet, not without proof. But every instinct told me I was already too deep to turn back. I began quietly asking around. I texted a few friends who had been invited to the event. They all confirmed the same thing. My name was gone, and nobody knew why. Some even hinted at strange rumors about her finances. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The air around me felt heavier every time I thought about it. Later that day, I decided to visit her house. It wasn't far from mine. I told myself I was just checking in, but deep down I knew I was crossing a line. When I arrived, the house looked different, quieter, almost empty. The windows were drawn, and there was a faint smell of dust and something metallic, something I couldn't place. I rang the bell. No answer. I tried the door. It was unlocked. My heart thudded. Inside, it was silent. Too silent. I stepped in, the floor creaking under my feet. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but I kept moving forward. I followed the faint sound of paper shuffling upstairs. The hallway was lined with photographs. Her smiling, laughing moments I'd shared with her as a child. But they felt distant now, like I was looking at someone I no longer knew. I moved toward the sound. Upstairs, I found her in a small study room, papers scattered across the desk. She looked up, startled. Her eyes were tired, guarded. "Alec, you shouldn't be here," she said softly. "Why? Why would you take my name off your list? What's going on?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. She just stared at me. Her hands shook slightly as she closed the folder in front of her. "This isn't something you can understand right now," she whispered. But I knew she was lying. I stepped closer, glancing at the papers she was trying to hide. My eyes caught a headline on one page. "House under threat. Family feud sparks $1 million battle." My breath caught. Was this about her home? And how was I involved? Before I could ask more, she stood abruptly. "Ali, see, please. Just leave. Forget about this." But I couldn't. My mind was racing. I stepped toward her, my voice trembling. "No. I want to know the truth. What's happening with your house? Why would removing me make any difference?" She took a deep breath, her shoulders slumping. "You don't understand the people I've been dealing with. This isn't just about a house. It's about power, debts, and keeping secrets." I froze. The words hit me like a punch. I wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but something in her tone told me this was bigger than both of us. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about what she said. Power, debts, secrets. My mind went back to the letter I had found, the strange words, the anger. Something dangerous was brewing, and somehow I was now tangled in it. The next day, I went back to her house. I had to know. I couldn't leave without answers. I tried calling her first, but the call went straight to voicemail. I decided to go in again. This time, the front door wasn't just unlocked. It was open. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. The air was colder than before. Upstairs, the study was empty. Papers scattered everywhere, as if someone had gone through them in a hurry. My sister was gone, I noticed her laptop on the desk, still open. The screen showed an email titled, "Final warning. Your property is in danger." My hands trembled as I read. It mentioned sums of money, legal battles, and something about an agreement that could not be broken. It was all so strange. Why was I involved? What had I done to end up in the middle of this? And why did she take my name off that guest list if it wasn't about me? I knew one thing for sure. This was not just about an invitation. My sister was fighting something she couldn't face alone, something dangerous enough to push her to silence me. And now, I had no choice but to dig deeper the next. Days became a blur. I started tracing her calls, looking through more documents I found hidden in her room, asking people who knew her situation. Every answer only opened more questions. Every lead pulled me deeper into a world I wasn't prepared for. And then, one night, I got a call. No name on the screen. A voice whispered, "Stop looking for her. You don't know what you're getting into." I froze. My phone slipped from my hand. That voice was chilling. It wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a guest list or even a house. This was something far bigger. Something dangerous. Something that could destroy everything we knew. And the truth was closer than I thought. Because what my sister had done was not an accident. It was a warning to me. And I had no idea what I had just stepped into. I couldn't stop thinking about that phone call. That voice. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again, whispering through the dark. Stop looking for her. But how could I stop? My sister was missing, and I was more determined than ever to find her. The next morning, I decided to go back to her house. I knew it was dangerous, but fear wasn't enough to stop me now. I needed answers. I stepped carefully through the front yard. The air was heavy, thick with a strange silence. Even the birds seemed to have stopped singing. Inside, the house was worse than before. Papers were scattered everywhere, drawers torn open, and a strange smell, like metal and dust, hung in the air. My heart pounded. I went upstairs slowly, trying not to make a sound. The study was gone. The door stood wide open, and inside, nothing was left except for one folder lying on the floor. I picked it up. Inside were pictures. Not ordinary pictures. They were photographs of my sister, taken at different places and times, without her knowing. Someone had been watching her. My stomach tightened as I flipped through the pages. Alongside the photographs were documents, bank statements, legal papers, and something that looked like a seat. Entr'acte. One line caught my eye. Failure to comply will result in total forfeiture of property and personal safety. My throat went dry. This wasn't just about her house. This was about something far more dangerous, something someone was willing to fight for, even with threats. I felt eyes on me. My breath caught, and I spun around. No one. But the feeling lingered. My instincts told me I wasn't alone. I shut the folder quickly and slipped it into my bag. As I turned to leave, I heard something faint. A soft creak upstairs. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to run, but I knew I couldn't. This was her house, her danger, and now, mine too. I stepped carefully toward the sound. The hallway felt endless. The creak came again, this time closer. I froze. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. No name, just a text. Leave now, or you'll regret it. Cold air ran down my spine. My hand shook as I looked around. I didn't know who was sending these messages, but one thing was certain. They knew I was there. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my own bed, clutching the folder. My mind raced. Why was my sister hiding this? Why remove my name from that guest list? And most importantly, who was threatening us? The next day, I decided to talk to someone who might know. An old friend of hers, someone she trusted. I called him. His name was Mark. He agreed to meet me at a small cafe downtown. When I arrived, Mark looked uneasy. He glanced over his shoulder several times before speaking. "Alec, you should stop looking for her. This isn't safe." "What happened?" I asked, leaning forward. Mark hesitated. "Your sister. She got involved in something big, something dangerous. There are people who won't stop until they get what they want. She tried to protect you by removing your name." My chest tightened. "Protect me? From what?" "I can't say here," he said quietly, glancing around. "But I can tell you this. They're powerful, and they're not afraid to cross lines. Your sister knew the risk. That's why she disappeared." The words hit me harder than I expected. I stared at him, trying to process. My sister, gone because she tried to protect me? That felt like something out of a nightmare. Mark reached into his coat and slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a single piece of paper with my sister's handwriting. It read, "Alec, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Don't trust anyone. Find the truth before it's too late." My hands trembled. My mind screamed for answers. I knew this was bigger than a family feud or a lost house. My sister was in danger, and so was I. That night, I decided I had no choice. I couldn't stop. I had to find her, even if it meant stepping into the very danger that had taken her away. The next days became a blur of searching. I followed leads, tracked calls, and even checked places she might have gone. But everywhere I turned, I hit walls. Doors closed. People avoided me. And the deeper I dug, the more dangerous it became. One evening, while going through her old messages, I found something that froze my blood. A name kept appearing. The Grey Circle. I had never heard of it before, but every message linked to it spoke of debts, silence, and control. I knew then that I wasn't just chasing my sister. I was chasing something far darker, something dangerous enough that it had erased her from the world. And yet, I couldn't stop. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew this was no longer just about her. It was about me too. And I was already in too deep to turn back now. I didn't sleep that night. My mind was a storm of questions, fear, and determination. Every sound outside felt like a warning. Every shadow seemed to hide someone watching me. I knew I was on their radar now. But still, I couldn't stop. Not when I was this close. The next morning, I followed a lead Mark had given me, an address connected to the Grey Circle. It was an old warehouse on the outskirts of town, abandoned for years. My hands shook as I pulled my coat tighter around me. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but I kept walking. When I arrived, the place was silent. Broken windows, rusted doors, and a faint metallic smell hung in the air. I stepped inside carefully, my phone flashlight cutting through the darkness. My footsteps echoed. Somewhere deep in the warehouse, I heard voices, low, urgent, and tense. I moved closer, hiding behind crates, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. They were talking about my sister. Not just her name, but details of her life, her choices, and the house she had lost. They spoke like she had betrayed them, like she had something they wanted. My chest tightened. I pressed myself harder against the shadows. That's when I heard a sound that made my heart stop. Her voice, weak, trembling, but unmistakably hers. "Alec," she whispered. It was faint, but it was real. My sister, alive. My legs moved before I thought, carrying me deeper into the dark maze of the warehouse. Every step brought more noise, more voices. I could see figures moving ahead. Then a hand grabbed my arm. It was Mark. "Alec, this is dangerous. You need to leave, now." "I can't," I said firmly. "She's here. I have to find her." Mark's face fell. "Then you're walking into something you might not come back from." I shook my head. "I don't care." We moved forward. Every corner we turned, every creak of the floorboards, made my heart pound faster. Then we reached a large room in the center of the warehouse. Inside, under a single swinging light bulb, I saw her, my sister, bound to a chair, bruised, her face pale but alive. Her eyes locked on mine, and she whispered again, "Alec, run." I rushed forward, but before I could reach her, a voice cut through the air. Cold, controlled. "You shouldn't have come here." From the shadows stepped a man, in a sharp suit, face unreadable. Around him were others, all watching us silently. Fear wrapped around me like a thick blanket. My sister winced as he approached her. "You've been asking questions," he continued, eyes fixed on me. "And that's dangerous. Some truths are meant to be buried." "Where is she?" I shouted, my voice trembling but loud enough to echo. The man smirked. "She belongs to us now, and so do you, if you keep digging." My sister tried to speak, but he silenced her with a sharp gesture. My breath came fast. Everything in me screamed to fight, but I was outnumbered, outgunned. Still, I stepped forward. "I'm not leaving without her," I said. The man laughed softly. "That's brave. And foolish." Suddenly, Mark stepped beside me. "Alec, now!" he shouted. He grabbed my arm, pulling me backward, but I resisted. I needed to save her. I had to. A struggle broke out. Voices, footsteps, shouts. The air was filled with chaos. I could barely see through the dark, but I kept moving toward her. My sister's eyes were locked on mine, filled with fear and pleading. And then, everything changed. A loud crash, a blinding light. Someone screamed. My ears rang. When I opened my eyes, the warehouse was in chaos. Smoke, shouting, running. I grabbed my sister's hand. She looked at me, terrified but determined. "We have to go," I said, pulling her toward the exit. But before we could move, the man in the suit blocked our way. "This ends now," he said calmly, but with an edge that made my blood run cold. My sister gripped my hand tighter. I could see the pain in her eyes, but also a strange strength. And in that moment, I realized, no matter what happened next, I wasn't going to stop. The world had already changed for us, and there was no turning back. The air was thick with smoke, dust, and something heavier. Fear. My heart pounded so loudly it felt like it might burst out of my chest. My sister's grip was tight, desperate, as if letting go meant losing everything. I dragged her forward, ignoring the pain in my own arms. Every step felt leak. It took a lifetime. The man in the suit didn't move. He just watched us, his expression unreadable. Behind him, the others began to scatter. It was chaos. Somewhere, sirens wailed. Somewhere else, glass shattered. My legs burned. My lungs screamed for air. But I kept moving, because I had to. I couldn't stop. Not now. We burst out of the warehouse into the cold night. The air hit us hard, sharp and biting. My sister stumbled, but I caught her. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. I pulled her close, whispering her name. She didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the shadows behind us. We ran, without looking back. Somewhere far away, I could hear sirens growing louder. It sounded like hope, or maybe danger. I wasn't sure which. All I knew was that we were alive. We had escaped. Later, sitting in the quiet of my small apartment, I looked at her. The sister I thought I knew. The sister who had removed me from her life. The sister who had lost her home, her safety, and maybe even her freedom. She was silent, staring out the window. I wondered what she was thinking. Fear, regret, relief. The truth was, I didn't know if any of this was over. The world I'd stepped into was bigger than our personal fight. It was about more than just family. It was about secrets, power, and injustice. About people who believe they can take everything without consequence. That night, I lay awake, my mind replaying every moment, every look, every word, every decision. And I realized something. This wasn't just her story. It was mine. It was the story of anyone who's been silenced, betrayed, or forgotten. And now, I have to ask myself, and maybe all of you listening, how far would you go to save someone you love? How much would you risk before the truth finally breaks free? Because the hardest part isn't surviving. It's living with what you've seen. And I still don't know if I can